Hi, how's your dog doing? Linus gets terrible sleep. He studies Hebrew on Duolingo till 3 a.m., completely ruining his ability to learn the next day. Next day he wakes up, feels tired, and cannot learn anything. Marcus Aurelius, on the other hand, gets a full 10 hours in bed, waking up with the sun, perfecting his sleep to optimize language learning and general productivity. You know, if you're a person, you probably know that one person who seems to stay up till any time and they seem just fine. Well, that was me. Sometimes I would stay up as late as 4 a.m., then wake up at 6, and I'd be terrible at language learning, and I would take a lot longer to learn anything than I should have. I didn't think that there was a problem, but that's because I would take naps during the day because I didn't realize how bad my sleep was. My sleep is not perfect, but at least it's a lot better when I go to do stuff during the day. One problem that I've noticed with not just sleep, but in a lot of aspects, including relating to language learning, is that a lot of times people will sacrifice what's good for them in the long run for what we can call cheap pleasures that seem good but aren't really good for them in the long run. A great example of this is staying up late. Sure, it's fun to stay up late, and sometimes there are those times where you really need to get an idea down or really need to finish an assignment for the next day, but doing that every single day is not good. You need to have some kind of moderation for it at least. Like, if you really need to stay up till 3 a.m. sometimes, do it like once a month, a couple of times a year. That's not going to completely ruin your health. Sure, it seems fun to stay up late, but in the end it's not. It's only novel and fun for the first couple of times, then after that, you just end up being miserable. And no, even though you might feel like you can, that's because your body adapts to whatever sleep schedule you get. So if you got 2 hours of sleep each night, your body is going to try to make you feel like that's a decent amount of sleep. You get so bad that you can't even tell that you've been getting bad sleep. And obviously what the solution to this would be to optimize sleep for perfect language learning. Because, well, all the real learning and memorization actually happens while you're sleeping, not while you're awake. When you learn something, your brain actually goes through it and cycles through it and remembers it when you're asleep. That is the time when you're optimizing your learning, sleeping. So if you can get your sleeping down, and of course get your learning down, you have a perfect way to learn a language effectively. Even if you used a bad method, good sleep would be a great help because you'd still remember something about what you're learning, instead of just staying up late and not remembering anything because you've been getting terrible sleep. Now, sure, it's rather obvious that you need to optimize your sleep to get better at learning languages, but how can we actually do that? First off, I'm going to teach you something that might be a little mind-shattering. And when I say it, it's not going to be what you think. The time you're in bed does not equal the amount of time that you're asleep for. Now, you might be watching this and think, oh, well, of course, yeah, it takes me a little bit to fall asleep. Sure, there is that. Sometimes it takes a while to fall asleep, but that's not what I'm talking about at all. On top of the amount of time it takes for you to fall asleep, there's also something called sleep efficiency. Your sleep has an efficiency. Some people can be asleep for the same amount of time, and one person will get better sleep than the other person. Just think about that. And while there are some people that don't need 8 hours of sleep, not time in bed, generally you should be going for 8 hours. Now you might be asking, how can this be? Well, your body is partially awake sometimes when you're asleep. As you probably know, sleep is not just one thing you're just on and off. It goes through cycles, and during those periods of lighter sleep, your body can actually still be awake and moving, and you can still be unconscious. That's how sleepwalking works. Your body is awake, your mind is not. So now you might be worrying about if you're getting good sleep. Well, there are two solutions to that. Well, more than that, but there are two big solutions to that. First off, if you can, set more time for bed. If you have a sleep efficiency of, say, 80%, then be in bed for 10 hours instead of 8. 8 hours, you're probably getting like 6 hours of sleep. Now, most people can't really set aside 10 plus hours for bed, so generally I'd recommend that you set aside 9 if you can, because you're still getting about 7 hours of sleep, which is within the healthy range. Another, probably lesser known tip, is to get sunlight in the morning. Why? Well, your body has a biological clock called your circadian rhythm. This is activated through a lot of things, but one of them is the daylight cycle. And no, I'm not talking about through a window. You have to go outside and get the sun into your eyes. Don't stare directly into the sun, but just go outside. You need to be outside, not indoors looking through a window. And no, you cannot just get this through indoor lighting. There are some very bright lights you can use, and that will be sufficient, but those are like studio lights and the ones that people use for selfies, not your regular home lights. You can measure the amount of light and brightness in your room. It'd be nothing compared to the amount that you'd get if you went outside with the sun. The sun is a lot brighter. And on top of that, it would also be very good for you to get outside and see the sun set, because these are two very important things that help determine when we should go to sleep. Now, I'm not going to get into the whole neuroscience and biology part of it because that's not my particular area of expertise. I dabble in it when it comes to stuff like this, but I'm not a neuroscientist in any way, so I don't know, watch Andrew Huberman or something. One other thing that you can do is make sure that you cool down at night and warm up in the morning. Your body will always cool down before you go to bed. That's why a lot of times you can wake up and you'll feel cold, because your body cools down when you go to bed, and your body wants to stay cold until it starts warming up, which tells your body to wake up. So, how can you do this? Well, for cooling down, you can have a fan on in your room or some other way to make the room a little colder. One other good way is to take a warm bath. Now, you might think that a warm bath would be contradictory because you're getting warmer. What actually happens when you take a warm bath is that your body senses that your skin is warm, the outer part of your body. So then internally, it cools down to compensate. And the same thing happens when you take a cold shower. Your body warms up to compensate. You wake up in the morning to feel better, to feel more awake, and to reset your biological clock. What you can do is you can take a cold shower, but for some people that might be a little extreme, though I would recommend it. Another good one is exercise. It's a very good one, and it's always healthy. There's no risk for exercising. Just try to make sure that you're keeping yourself warm in the morning and colder at night. Make sure that you're getting sunlight, or at least very bright studio type lights in the morning, and things start to dim down later in the evening. Another good way to do this is to go into your phone and change the blue light settings. What I do is I have the blue light settings on my phone to only be on until around 6 p.m. After that, the hue changes to be very red and orange, so that way my body isn't as alert, and that's very important because warmer colors or warmer light is not as alerting to your body as blue light, because the brighter types of light, like blue light and white light, that's the kind of light that comes from the sun. So your body thinks the sun's out, we should be awake. When it sees the warmer light, it thinks the sun's going down, or at least night is coming. So let's start to slow down a little bit and start to kind of prepare for bed. Now, there are other things you can do, like when you go to bed. For example, optimum time for going to bed would be before around 11 p.m. if you wake up from anywhere from 5 to 9 a.m. And that's just because after a certain point of being awake for a while, your body just starts to produce more cortisol, which keeps you alert and awake and makes it a lot harder to fall asleep and gives you worse sleep quality. Now, I don't say all of this to make you feel bad about the sleep that you've been getting or to really worry about it. No, I don't say this to have you worry about your sleep or to meticulously do every little thing to make it better, but at least taking a couple of these things would be very helpful. There are plenty of other things you could do, which I could probably make a whole separate video about, but for now, that's what I'll have in this video. This will be a basic guide for getting better sleep for language learning. Alright, I hope this video was very helpful to you. I guess feel free to subscribe and comment. That's kind of what I have to say, I guess. Alright, tell your dog I said hi.